It is our Monday conversation with Adam Terry after the Saturday night win out in West Lafayette for the Orange. And, man, Adam, impressive performance it looked like all around. When you step back from it now a couple days later, what are your main takeaways from that one?
Well, I think the biggest thing is keep Garrett Schrader healthy, right? Like, he's a difference maker. We've seen it in the past with a kid like Eric Dungey who can control a game with his legs and his arm. And Garrett Schrader is not the same quarterback, but there is a situation where he can do exactly the same things. And, you know, the people that are supposed to keep him clean and healthy are the offensive line. And with I'm not going to say a makeshift offensive line because guys are there on scholarship, but a renewed right tackle in Mark Petrie. You know, I think he came out pretty much unscathed and did a good job, right? Like, you know, that's his first real action extended play. So overall, you got to look and see what they were capable of doing. And I think one of the things that stands out the most is Chris Bleich getting all ACC honors for, you know, O-lineman of the week. So obviously when you turn the film on, the O-line did a pretty good job.
Yeah, no false starts this week for Chris Bleich, and graded out very well in his blocking, both pass and run in the game on Saturday. And you're right, Adam, it all starts with Schrader. And I guess this is the main question of the whole season, right? Like, how sustainable is it? I mean, the guy was brilliant on Saturday, but my goodness, that's a lot to put on one person.
Yeah, no, it's a tremendous amount of I don't even want to say pressure because I think he relishes the fact that this offense is going to run through him. It's just a matter of, you know, can you keep him upright and can you keep him without those second, third hits? You know, he's gonna get popped. He's a guy that's going to go run in there and he's going to get popped in a tackle or something like that. The ones that are a little bit nerve-wracking are those second and third hits that, you know, in what I did as an offensive lineman in the NFL, that was part of your job is to make sure that people weren't just trying to pick them off late, and you got to run down there and make sure that you're playing bodyguard later on afterwards. So I think it's a fantastic opportunity. The wide receivers were not heavily involved, right? I think this was the first game that you didn't see throwing it around, but I think your only takeaway with that is if the ball is in the vicinity, the great players make great plays, and these are good players right now, and there's just that next step up that they have to make in order to make those, not circus catches, but highlight reel catches.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the pass-catching group, only 3 players caught balls the whole game. LaQuinn Allen led the team with 6, and you look at Alford, Adam, and Donovan Brown, who I think has been a revelation here the last couple weeks. But Isaiah Jones must have been banged up. That's the only thing that makes sense. Umari Hatcher had that drop in the first half to Marcus Adams. I don't know if we want to call it a drop, but he had a chance at a long one. And, you know, the big overhanging thing is we learned officially a couple hours before the game is that Oronde Gadsden is out for the season. Like, how much is that Oronde thing you think going to affect them as the season goes along? Because, you know, this is 1 week, but everybody knew that he was the guy.
Yeah, the biggest thing out of this is who are you going to throw to? Who's going to be that security blanket when they take away Garrett Schrader? Right? There's going to be a point in time where, you know, whether that's Army or Clemson, somebody's going to dial in and say, he is not going to beat us. So in a scenario like that, LaQuinn Allen has to step up, as well as, you know, who is going to be the guy that's going to be the security blanket. Donovan Brown and Umari Hatcher seem like those go-to guys for him early the first 2 games. But at a point in time, at the beginning of this year, someone is going to say, Garrett Schrader is not going to beat us, and you're going to have to beat him with the legs of LaQuinn Allen, because that's going to open up some avenues when they're keying a quarterback instead of a tailback. And then when you blitz or you try to take away the quarterback, who's going to be open? And can they catch the ball if it's completed? Those are the 2, you know, football's very difficult, but not very difficult, right? Like, Garrett Schrader is beating us. I need to stop him. How are we going to stop him? And usually that is someone that is normally in the defense has to go and keep eyes on him. So it's going to hold defenses a little bit, but who can step up in those scenarios and make the plays? And I like our options at wide receiver, but having having a guy like Oronde Gadsden that you could throw it up and he had a big catch radius, that is going to be missed.
Yeah, and obviously officially out for the year. I don't know what the deal was with Isaiah Jones. He played early in the game, but he wasn't on the field at all, what I noticed in the second half. Dino had nothing to say about that this morning in his most recent press conference. Like, he felt like, we talk about Brown and Hatcher, like he felt like the number 2 right next to Gadsden, at least going into this week as far as things were being set up.
Yeah, I look at it. The great thing about this is competitions at multiple positions.
Mm-hmm.
And, we would love to just say, hey, I think we can crown this guy as the number 1 now, and this is the number 2. But I think week by week it's going to be Michael Johnson and Jason Beck, those two kind of going back and forth and saying, hey, I feel like this is the right situation for this guy, and then Dino getting involved in it and saying, hey, you know what, these guys had great practices. Let's see who the hot hand is today.
Go ahead, Em.
No, that's what I just think is going to occur at some point is, the cream's going to rise to the top, and we've started to see that a little bit, but also it's going to be a week-by-week competition in that room.
And just to avoid further injury, because what was depth a couple weeks ago is starting to run out at this point, though 3-0 here. I got to say this, Adam, though, about the offense. Like, when it works, like the naked bootleg has got to be one of the coolest plays in sports, right? When it works and nobody on the other side has any idea what's happening.
I have seen more of Garrett Schrader out of 2 plays this year on highlight reels and ESPN and different broadcast stations and social media off of naked bootlegs, right? Like, hey, if that's your thing, that's your thing. For a long time, it was a guy like Aaron Rodgers that could do it very successfully, and he opened it up. But, that last one where he hides the ball, turns his back to the defense, and then takes off down the sideline, in my head, I'm like, he's going to go down, and it was kind of unfortunate because it was such a great play that you're like, man, I wish he went to the house. But then you also understand the circumstances at the end of the game that going down and preserving and keeping the clock running is more important than another touchdown. Now, you don't get to say that a lot about skill position players, that another touchdown is not as valuable as going down, but in that scenario it was.
6 more yards, he would have had the Syracuse single-game record for quarterback rushing. So, had Dungy on post-game. He got to keep his record, so that was good for my co-host on Saturday night, that not all of his records are going out the window. But we got Adam Terry with us. It's our Monday review. Syracuse beating Purdue over the weekend, 35-20. Let's talk defense, though, Adam. All this talk on offense. The defense was great. They forced what was 4 turnovers. It easily could have been 6 or more. What did you make of that? It felt like the ball was on the ground like every other Purdue possession the whole game.
It is a well-oiled unit right now. They're doing, guys are coming in and out. There's wholesale changes on that defensive line, which we didn't get to see, so depth is coming on that defensive line. And you've got a guy like Stephon Thompson who's just kind of still waiting in the wings. Derek McDonald's doing a good job there, and I think that Steph continues to come back from that ACL injury and surgery. He's going to add more value. So you get to see the depth that Syracuse was able to do defensive line-wise, a little bit in the transfer portal, guys maturing, coming off of injuries. The linebacking core led by Marlo Wax was fantastic. It's great to see him now step out from underneath the shadow of previous linebackers that he's been behind, and rightfully so. Michael Jones was, a fantastic guy and his production, but now Marlo is starting to blossom as the leader, as the key guy, putting people in the right position. And the secondary had a couple lapses. I think Jeremiah Wilson, they went after him. They thought whether he was either the weakest link or they liked to throw in that area. They thought that was a good throw for their quarterback. In Card, who knows? But he held up pretty well. There was a couple moments where you're not going to be 100% perfect, but he held up well. And then Isaiah Johnson did the same. They were being thrown at, and they were holding up. And that's, as a corner, that's what you need. And then the safeties are able to help over the top. Yeah. So, defensively, what did you like? Everything. And it's kind of the nonchalantness behind, I don't even want to say that. I should say the calmness behind what Rocky Long has done for that defense. Everybody, it's a little bit of a chaos when they're going and they're filling the gaps and making sure that they're in the right alignment. But when it all shakes out, as long as everybody's in the right place and the right gap control and the continuity of their gap control, that's what you got to love. And they're highly effective under Rocky Long doing that thus far. The only hiccup was the Colgate second play of the game, and everything else after that has been extremely solid with those front 6, 7, 8, however they build it, guys.
Take me through some of you mentioned Rocky Long. Take me through some of the tactics here in this last game, Adam. Obviously effective. Like, he was really, really aggressive the first 2 weeks. I'm not sure if it was a zone or if they were just laying off a little bit, but it was, to keep everybody in front of you this week. What did you notice about how he, dialed it up a little bit differently this week?
Well, first and foremost, I think this group is playing their tail off. They're playing hard. They're playing physical, and you can see a little bit of that with guys. Darton went down with some cramping towards the third, fourth quarter, and you didn't skip a beat, right? So the biggest thing that I look for defensively is when somebody gets pulled out, you don't have to cover them up. They're not a liability. You can just continue to keep calling what you need to. Guys were driving on the ball, and that is evident with some of that zone dropping. You keep the ball in front of you. You're able to drive onto a receiver instead of playing in their hip pocket, playing man-to-man all the time. And then how you build the rush, right? There were some 3-man rushes that were getting pretty close to home. They weren't hitting home, but they were getting pretty close. And then as you built it out with the linebackers included, you would get a 4 or 5-man rush and just start to overwhelm an offensive line that prides themselves, that Purdue offensive line that was priding themselves on the ability to run the football.
How tough is that for you, Adam, as a lineman? Like, that rush, it doesn't come from the same angle twice, right? It's not like a 4-man front which just lines up and comes at you. How tough is it when they may not be overwhelming you in numbers, but you just don't know which way they're coming at you every time?
Well, I think the toughest part with what Syracuse is doing is the multiplicity of personnel, guys going in the game. So, for instance, if you're saying that Derek McDonald or a guy like Leon Lowry are going to be the rushers each time, and you're considering, okay, we're going to count these three guys down plus that guy as our 4-man rush, and then all of a sudden he bails, they rush from the other side, plus they're bringing a middle linebacker, like that wears on you because it's like, now you see it, here you see it, now you don't, right? It's the magician of, hey, we're going to look like it's coming from over here, and then it's going to come over from here. And when I was in the Rex Ryan defense down in Baltimore, that's what they were highly effective in doing is they were a little bit different, and they were walking around big guys, where the Rocky Long defense is you're not necessarily walking around big guys. And what I mean by that is their hand is not in the ground, but how they build the rush out of the linebacking core. And when they were hitting home and they were getting after the quarterback, there's only one thing that can occur, right? It's either a completion or that ball is erratically thrown, and we saw a lot of erratically thrown balls that were up for grabs.
No, or a fumble. Hudson Card just couldn't hold on to the ball all night on Saturday. It was crazy. That
was crazy because there was one hit him right in the hands, dropped in front, and then all of a sudden, a blink of an eye, 3 Syracuse defenders were on top of it. That one was crazy because he didn't have enough time to fall forward on top of the football.
Yeah, that was his 3rd fumble the first half. It was just wild to see that volume of turnovers. You know what, Adam? The play that stood out to me most on defense of the day was the interception, but it wasn't Marlowe. It wasn't his part. Like, that was almost the easy part. Like that play that. Who was it? It was Cinco, Elisha Clark, that drove in there and knocked the ball up in the air. That was a high caliber play, it looked like, from the safety.
Yeah, that back end right now is not getting enough credit, but pretty soon you're going to have to rely on them. And let's say they continue to play at that high level, that's when people will start to notice, right? When you're driving down, and whether that's Simmons or Cinco or a rotation in there, Farmer potentially being in that involvement at some point, just having depth and talent is unheard of as of late in the Syracuse secondary, and they've had a lot of high-level talented players, but kind of this unselfishness of them going into the game and creating havoc has been it's fun to watch. Now we keep this crescendo going. Army, are they a high caliber? Are they higher caliber than Purdue? I don't know, but I think they're adept at what they do, and they do it well, and they're going to run the football at you, 50 times a game, and they're going to throw the ball less than 10. So for Syracuse, you know what you're getting into, and you feel comfortable with what they are capable of doing on that front 6, 7 guys. And then, as we found out today, now it's ABC against Clemson. So you got to take what you have right in front of you and execute. But then you also know what that potential prize is a head-to-head battle against a perennial power in the ACC.
Yeah, we'll see what Clemson gets there. They got FSU this week, as Adam said. That's a nooner on ABC. Back-to-back noon games coming up. Last thing, Adam, you mentioned Army. It's not the under-center triple option anymore. They've had to switch things up with the change of the cut blocking rules. But they had the ball for 45 minutes last week, time of possession. It's crazy numbers. How do you deal with a team like this? That's their goal, to have the ball the whole game.
You can't. You have to be productive and offensively, right? Like, they're going to chew up the clock. You know that the way that this is, a statement Doug Marrone made when he first came into Syracuse is like, hey, we know we don't necessarily have the talent, but we're going to control the clock and keep it as close. And if we can keep it into the fourth quarter, we got a really good shot because we've been running the ball all day, and hopefully we can wear you out. So, diminutive in stature for this Army defense or this offensive line and defensive line, but they know what they're doing. They're well schooled in this is zone scheme for them, and they're going to be well versed in that. And now they can't go after legs and knees and ankles, but like you saw last week, they've evolved into a little bit more of that quarterback power option, get it to the outside. There's a little bit more window dressing, but, for the most part, you know what's going to come at you. And then, biggest thing is you got to stop it, and that's where Army thrives. Is they're gonna go in there and strap your chin strap up, and they're gonna make it into a physical battle and see who can tap out first.
Yeah, because if you don't stop it, all of a sudden 10 minutes have gone by, and your offense hasn't had the ball, and it's a whole thing. But we'll see how it goes on Saturday. If the Orange can get to 4-0, Adam, always good stuff. We'll do it again next Monday. Okay.
Sounds good. Talk to you soon.